Okay, normally I don't do videos this close together. Typically I try to do one a week, maybe one every 2 weeks. I'm kind of figuring out my schedule right now. But this is an update in the thing that we talked about last week with the White House Ballroom, and I thought it was too funny not to do some kind of an add on. So, behold a montage. Alright, let's see. Which ones of you are history nerds and can tell me which ones of those are real paintings versus which ones of those were AI? I'll give you a hint. The last two weren't even taken with two people that were alive at the same time. But this is something that President Trump has actually been posting recently, and I find it kind of hilarious. According to the reporting from The Independent actually yesterday, President Donald Trump has shared a flurry of new AI photos, including a video of him showing off his new White House ballroom to America's first president, George Washington. In a bizarre clip, this is quoting the article shared Sunday morning, Trump can be seen walking through his newly constructed White House ballroom alongside Washington, who died 227 years ago. Obviously, these images are not real. You don't have to be a master at detecting deepfakes to be able to tell that. However, I do think that it's kind of funny. Further on in the article, it states that along with this AI photo, Trump wrote, quote, "Thank you, George, for some of your brilliant ideas on this great military complex / ballroom from President Donald J. Trump," end quote. This video came after Trump shared another image of himself on Saturday alongside Washington on horseback, which was in the lovely montage that I constructed for you at the beginning of this video. However, this is another interesting thing about the ballroom. I thought that it was just going to be another one of the presidential add-ons. However, this actually has strategic importance here as well. It's actually an upgrade for the military, which I didn't know until I read this article when I got home from church yesterday. It states that the ballroom is only a portion of the project and that the government is actually building a sprawling, massive underground bunker with military installations underneath the site. This could potentially be very, very cool. Everybody always talks about survival preppers, all the people that are building their own bunkers to see what happens if the apocalypse or the Iran war gets worse. However, this is the government actually building on that concept. I think that a massive underground bunker under the White House would actually be incredibly cool, especially depending on what kinds of military installations are installed with that as well. However, it's still up to the Supreme Court. According to this article, they have to decide what to do by August 21st, which is actually, let me check, that's just going to be in 4 days from now. So keep watching the news. I think that I'm going to be working that day, so I doubt that I'll have anything out on it. But keep watching to see what happens with the ballroom / military bunker. However, there's a couple of different things that we can actually draw out of this that lead to a bit of a broader impact and a question that we as a society should be asking ourselves right now. Can you tell when you're being entertained, when you're being persuaded, and when you're being deceived? This has to do particularly with AI. I'll admit, there are some very funny things that happen with this. Donald Trump's AI posts on Twitter, the White House Twitter account, I believe, is one of the biggest Comedy Central things. It has been for the last few years, anyway. I remember there were multiple different online debate tournaments that I did with my partner, and basically every single round, as soon as we were finished, his first priority wasn't, let's go over and see what we could have done better, but quite a few times what we would do after the round was look at the White House Twitter account to see what different things Donald Trump had been posting. These are very entertaining, they're kind of funny, but it does show something, especially this one with George Washington here. I think it actually goes to show even further Trump's fascination with presidential and American history and imagery. He has made AI images of himself rather fighting in the Revolutionary War, etc. This was something that I saw on 4th of July about 3 or 4 years ago at this point, and there have been many such images like it. But additionally, he's trying to build this ballroom in the style of colonial America. He's been very vocal about that. He doesn't just like history, he likes to visualize it, and he likes to be a part of it in his own way, albeit through interesting AI images and AI-generated videos, which the rest of us can spot as obvious fakes and get a good laugh out of every once in a while. But it does bring up a question. what is the impact of presidents using AI for promotion of their projects and their ideas? They can obviously be very funny and harmless, as with what Donald Trump is doing. All of us know that there's no way that he's leading George Washington through his new ballroom for two different reasons. The first and most obvious one, George Washington hasn't been alive for over 200 years at this point. Secondly, the ballroom's not done. Third, it's fairly easy to distinguish AI content. My brothers and I, whenever we've been to movie theaters, one of them in particular has a kind of promotion that they do for their theater where it looks like you're putting the audience into the movie. Except for one thing. We can very clearly tell that this promotion is generated with AI. It doesn't even look like regular computer animation. There are a couple of different things that you can kind of just tell. So obviously it can be funny and it can be harmless. My debate partner and I used AI to make multiple different pictures of my brother, his friends, and other people with different haircuts. It was a whole thing, you kind of just had to be there, but it's funny and it's harmless. However, you have to be discerning in what is that, just entertainment, and what is propaganda. Now, there are very clear distinctions between what's obviously fictional, which is Trump and Washington riding horses next to each other, and what's potentially misleading, such as an AI-generated image depicting an event, a person, a military action, a protest, etc., that looks like an actual photograph. With videos, it's pretty easy to tell. But with AI-generated images, that's becoming harder and harder day after day. A lot of AI detectors aren't even able to pick up on these things the way that they used to be because the system is evolving. AI is one of those things that, from my understanding at least, is a self-learning system. You feed it a certain amount of code and you give it a certain program, but over time it can essentially learn things just the longer that it exists and the more context it's fed about the world around it. It is a self-learning system and it's getting better at generating more realistic things, at least with still photographs. It's not generating 8-fingered hands anymore like it initially was. However, there's nothing wrong with good, clean fun, which is exactly what I think the White House is doing here today. But again, the question is, can you tell when you're being entertained, when you're being persuaded, or when you're being deceived? I think as long as we keep that in mind and we can make the clear distinctions between funny and harmless and potentially misleading, I don't see a major problem with presidents using AI to promote these types of ideas, especially if it's done in the first of those two categories. Now, I'm definitely going to be watching this saga closer because what I thought was just going to be one quick thing that I thought was interesting keeps evolving into something even more. Now, obviously, Donald Trump has not taken George Washington through his new ballroom. But I think the design and the attempt to pay homage to this area of the colonial state of America is something that's really interesting to note here too. You see, a lot of times in our country nowadays, people are trying to be more modern. We're trying to embrace modernity in different ways. We're trying to put away old ideas and go into the new progressive future. But I think that something like this that's an homage to the history of our country might just be exactly what we need.